Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rerick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. Hey everyone, it's your host, Tori Rerick, mindfulness guide and healer here. Welcome to July. If you didn't know, we dive deeper into a new theme each month inside of Well Connected, my self-healing membership. And what's in store for July is surrendering and strengthening our sacral chakra energy, this energy of pleasure and creation. So I'll be sharing a behind-the-scenes vlog on my rituals for release, and the training of the month will cover how to release the how for those of us who are learning to allow and trust in the process and timing of our blessings, my perfectionists out there. If you're a leader who wants to be a part of an encouraging community where you will access inner harmony, build connection with your intuition and confidence in your authentic path, you can learn more about what's already inside waiting for you at toryrerick.com/membership. I invite you to join, to be held to your highest frequency, prioritize your well-being, and be the leader of your life. Let's get to the show with Kieryn. Welcome back to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. Tonight I'm speaking with Kieryn Wang of Almost Consulting. Kieryn is a cannabis marketer focused on harnessing digital communities and experiential activations to bring consumers and collaborators together, always working to break the stigma of women identifying cannabis consumers. Through her PoC Cannabis Business Directory, now InclusiveBase, Kieryn hopes to amplify people of color-owned businesses and support those who are most affected by the war on drugs. Welcome, Kieryn.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is so exciting. You are such a strong voice in the cannabis industry. And as of late, with the climate of, well, really dismantling white supremacy in the system, you have been a beacon and someone that I've been looking toward for strength. So I just want to shout you out and say thank you for being a leader.
Yeah, and I thank you so much for that. And I definitely need to shout out, a lot of the people that are helping me do the work as well, like the women of CanInclusive especially. Working together and learning from each other is, especially now, incredibly valuable. So being able to do that, as well as, I think, we're all just trying to manage and come to terms with our new realities, right?
Completely. Yeah, I'm so excited to get into this conversation about community, really. But let's get to know you. So what was your very first experience like with cannabis?
So I definitely have to credit some of the women that I used to work with at back in the day in high school. I worked at Aldo. For those of you that don't know, Aldo is a shoe company that's Canadian based, but also has stores, all over the world. And I worked in, a little Seattle suburbs Aldo store. And my friends, some of them I still, one of them helped do all the branding for my business, they're very much in my life still. But these were the women that I, for the first time, ever was exposed to the plant or introduced to it. And I remember we used to have these, we called them circle nights, where, people, not just our coworkers, but kind of friends and other acquaintances would come. And I think it was almost every night, but I didn't attend every night because I didn't really have time for that. But I tried to attend as much as possible, FOMO, for, reasons, because everyone was having so much fun. Essentially, we would sit around in a circle and smoke weed on the patio outside of my friend's like apartment complex, and their mom was so cool with just everything. She's a cool mom. And the first time I smoked weed, I'm pretty sure it was like early 16 or something like that. And I smoked outside. I walked inside to go to the bathroom, and apparently I was in the bathroom for a really long time. I don't remember it, but someone came in like 45 minutes later or something like that, and they were like, "You've been in here for a really long time. Are you okay?" And they found me like staring at myself in the mirror.
Oh, the mirror trap. Got it.
Yeah, the mirror trap. I like went to the bathroom, was washing my hands, and was just like mesmerized. And that's the first time I ever smoked. I don't think, consumed at all. I don't think I had edibles before I smoked. So, and then edibles is like its own experience.
Yes, it is.
My first edibles experience wasn't the same as my first smoking experience, because I'd been smoking like a little while. But I don't remember my first one. I remember when I was in Amsterdam, and my friend, this was like, I want to say 2, maybe 3 years into smoking. I took a space cake in Amsterdam, and you know how those aren't like really great with, the regulations and the measurements and, all of that, the dosing. And so I don't know like what milligrams I got. But I remember we were at like a sex show in Amsterdam, and the space cake kicked in, and my friend and I were like, no.
That's intense.
It was very intense. And so I tell everyone, I'm like, if you're gonna go to a sex show, do not take a space cake beforehand.
That's a hot tip.
Yeah. I mean, like, you'd think we would have thought of that, but sometimes you have to make those mistakes, I guess.
You've gotta experience it completely. Yeah. So up until your first time smoking with your friends, were you familiar with cannabis or marijuana? Did you have any sort of stigma associated, or were you totally like open and wow, this is new for me?
Absolutely, such a stigma. I definitely was one of those kids that I remember when I found out my friend was smoking, like a few years before I started smoking, honestly, I was like, oh, you're such a terrible person. Like, why would you even consider drugs? And obviously, that the understanding of quote unquote drugs is definitely very different in my mind now. Just the idea of like man-made versus natural, what that means, as well as, as well as this is a plant, and like a lot of other plants, like, ashwagandha or, any sort of like food that people tout as, valuable health in terms of wellness and all that stuff, like herbs such as cannabis in that same vein.
Completely. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I guess what was that moment like for you? Or did you have any apprehension since you had this stigma, or were you just comfortable with this friend group? What was that icebreaker?
Yeah, I definitely trusted the friend group. I think, set and setting are so important when it comes to consuming anything.
Yes.
And that was so valuable, to have people who were like, look, you know what? I remember, I think the very first time, maybe not the very first time, but one of the first times I smoked was like out of an apple, like it wasn't even out of a real smoking device. And so those kinds of experiences and understanding, like, this is how community, is built, and how we connect. I've met so many people through this plant, right? It's such a connector, and it really, I mean, it just goes to show, like, if you're an up nerd, me, just smoke some weed, and a lot will open up.
What was the relationship like with cannabis after that? Did it become more of a regular thing, or did you take a break?
Yeah, so it became more so something I considered, right?
Mhm.
Versus like, let's grab a drink or, whatever it is. So that was definitely a consideration. I think when I moved and studied abroad in Europe, that's more so when I really became a stoner.
Mhm.
I lived in like just a short walk away from this place in Copenhagen, where kind of all the biker gangs used to meet up, and they would just sell weed, and they would sell other things, but like mostly
Okay.
it was known for, you just like walk into one of the stalls and they have, a selection of flour, a selection of joints, all that stuff. So because my dorm at the time was like, a walk away from all of that, and there were amazing food trucks and snacks, and obviously by the time you got down there, like, you had the munchies.
For sure.
That was for sure when I cultivated my love for the plant. um and then obviously, I when I studied abroad, that was when I went to Amsterdam and visited, and um realized I like need to live here at some point in my life.
Mm.
um and yeah, it really was just like, you need to, there's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah.
But like once you get kind of past the first hump, there's so many things that open up for you. And especially since 2012, at least in Washington, that's when we legalized, and so that's
Mhm.
really when the conversation started. But at that time, and still now, women weren't and aren't being addressed enough,
True.
in marketing, in conversations, in brand messaging, all of that stuff. So that was a big reason why I was like, I need to help women find this plant, because
Yes.
even if you don't choose it as an option, at least it's an option, right? And
Mhm.
that you can feel comfortable choosing it as an option if you want.
Yes. Yes.
The whole stigma is not helping women with their, wellness journeys.
Completely. Yeah, I relate to that. You've mentioned opening up quite a few times. Do you care to share, like, more specifically what you mean by that for you?
With
This,
cannabis.
yeah, helped you open up, like, your mind, probably,
Yeah.
but
I mean,
circle.
absolutely my mind, in terms of, being more understanding that there are a lot of realities out there.
Mhm.
I think cannabis is one of those things that really helps, at least, provide the framework of like, you are not the only reality, you are not the only experience on this planet.
Mhm.
You are absolutely fine to respect your own experience and to respect your own reality, but also to recognize that a lot of other kinds of people, kinds of brains, kinds of souls, kinds of hearts, kinds of, characters, individuals, like those all exist. That was a big thing for me. I think, growing up in such a, with such tunnel vision, honestly, of like what was acceptable, right? The kid that was like, no drugs, like I can't
Right.
believe you would even drink underage, and then like years later, I was, drinking underage. So yeah, that's a big one for me. And then also, coming to discover all these, I don't know if I would have discovered, my quote unquote spirituality
Mhm.
if I hadn't been consuming the plant. I think it would have taken me even longer, honestly.
Yeah, she's
um
totally an accelerator.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just an what's the right word? It's not like an enhancer, but like a magnet almost, right?
Yeah.
For the things that you do need in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, the awareness is just
Mhm.
it's the conversation we're having, the opening up.
Absolutely.
So, I want to hear about how you committed to working with the cannabis plant, like working in this industry. What led
Yeah.
to being like, this is part of my life, like this is it?
Yeah. So when I actually, the first job that I had when I graduated, was in cannabis. Like I had, obviously had internships and, not sort of more casual jobs like, Panera or Aldo or, high school era. And then after that, I was like, okay, what do I want to do? What do I care about? And I had, a woman reach out to me and she was like, I'm starting a cannabis company. It's not, we're not selling the plant or anything like that, but, she wanted to create products around women and potentially a more luxury lifestyle when it comes to cannabis accessories. So fancy jars, stash bags,
Yes.
grinder cards, that kind of thing. And I was like, this is, it is a pretty new industry. Of course, the medical, the folks that made medical possible, that made recreational possible, did so much of the legwork for us to even be able to exist. But I was just like, yeah, this is a new industry. It needs people to create narratives. It needs people to provide the direction for, when people are looking for resources or education. And so I felt like it was something that called to me, that I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And so I started working at the company. We got bought out by a Canadian company that is not fantastic and was, not great to work with. And so I ended up leaving. And at first when I left, I was like, I don't want to do just cannabis. I want to help people in all industries, from fashion to food to fitness to, everything.
Right.
And I was way too broad. I was like, oh, I'll help anyone who wants any marketing help whatsoever. And people were like, okay.
Right.
And then what was this? This was like a year and a half ago. I officially sat down and I was like, look, no, you know what? I'm going to focus on cannabis, because that was, originally where I had started building a foundation. And it's something I'm still passionate about. Obviously I have the marketing skills to help other people if I wanted to, but the real focus I need to be making is on this plant and on this industry. So as soon as I said that, and that's where my focus was, people were like, oh, okay, got it. So we understand what you do now.
Yes.
And people were like, okay, let's work together now, like, because nobody wanted to work with me when I was like so general and broad, in my offerings. And then I really focused in, and I was like, I do cannabis marketing for women. And people were like, got it.
That's me. Like,
yeah. And they were like, okay, I know all these ways that I can work with you, because I understand that you understand what you want to do.
Yeah, I vibe with that hard. You got to know what you want. And then other people are like, I'm on. You're a full-on entrepreneur. You were like, I'm just going to do my own thing.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have kids yet. I don't have a lot of, that sort of like financial responsibility just yet. So if I'm going to make a mistake, I might as well do it now.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up being a mistake. So that was good.
No, you're thriving. You have such a presence, and rightfully so. You're a marketing company. I want to know how you feel about the word unapologetic, because I feel like it's a part of almost consulting. And just like a characteristic I picked up on when hearing you speak. So do you identify with that? And were you always unapologetic?
Yeah, that has definitely been a characteristic that has frustrated my very traditional Asian elders for the entirety of my life. Just because I was never the go along with it, just that's the way we do things. I'm like, well, the way we do things is not right, then let's find a new way. For sure, I think I've honed my my voice a little bit more. It used to be more scattered.
Yeah.
I used to be like, I care about this and I care about this, and I still am like that very much. I think I'm excited for when I get even older and I get to like really control my rage even more. But yeah, the rage, the fire, it's always been there. And so that is a lot of what fuels me. Like that visceral reaction. What do I care about? What ignites something inside of me? And I, and me, you've seen this. I don't really take things like to 50%. It's like
No.
100% or nothing, you know? Yeah, so that unapologetic is absolutely a word that I would I identify with and have referred to myself as.
Okay. Dope.
Absolutely.
I love that about you. And I'm sure that's what the people who work with you love about you. And so you niche down, you have your specific group of people you work with, women in cannabis, but inside of that, you offer a wide range of services. Like you can do anything. You do individual projects, you establish a community for growing a brand. Do you have some case studies you'd like to share? Like anything you're really proud of that you're able to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I, have worked with companies to, like you mentioned, a lot of different facets, just because the first company that I worked at and kind of where I really honed a lot of my skills to begin with is, it was just two people. It was just me and another woman. And so anything that needed to get done, like we had to do it because who else was going to do it? So, I was sitting there running social. I was, setting up email newsletters. I was managing the blog and the site and the content and, finding people to help with photography and, with any sort of that visual support that, because I'm not a photographer or graphic designer. I will never claim to be. And and then also like packaging orders and like doing shipping and all that stuff. So I really was doing a lot, and because of that, I feel like it was my like Devil Wears Prada moment, where like you get put through the ringer and then you come out and you're like, any job after this is easy.
I got it.
Yeah. So like now I'm like, you know what? But when I left, I was like, I could do all of those things for anyone else, right? And with that, I was like, perfected, more of my email marketing skills, just in terms of not just setting up campaigns, but really like putting audience segmentation together, right? Figuring out how to really target messages to specific people that are interested in certain types of content or topics or products, right? And honing that in, as well as really, I mean, social is its own beast, right? It changes all, like what's frustrating is that social changes a lot and the cannabis industry also changes a lot, and then they both like kind of affect each other but are also separate. Having to navigate all of that is also a lot. And then really just through experiences and then through working with people and understanding how other people work, putting together and really just listening. Like I think listening and getting feedback from people that you work with, people that you're trying to talk to and speak to with your content, that's the best thing to creating a strong community, to really finding what it is that you want to talk about, right? Because it's like, why would I be talking about things that the people that I'm trying to talk to don't care about? Yeah, so a lot of that discovery, obviously, trial and error, mistakes have to be made along the way for lessons to be learned sometimes. But yeah, it really is just, unfortunately, my college education did not contribute a lot to the things that I'm learning now. Not to say don't go to college, kids. I'm just saying, like, really think about where you're going to be learning a lot of the skills that you're going to need moving forward.
Yeah. And I feel like the cannabis industry, like that's what it is. It's hands-on. You just have to dive in order to learn.
And be ready to fail.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk about this InclusiveBase. Let's talk about this directory. You started working on this in 2019. You collaborated with CanInclusive, which you've mentioned a bit, but feel free to shout them out again. So tell us more about that process and where it's at currently.
Yeah, so I back in I want to say March of last year, 2019, I had a friend reach out to me who asked, do you know any Black-owned CBD companies? And I could not name a single one off the top of my head. I had to like sit down and do a little digging, honestly. But I could name like 5 white-owned CBD companies right away. And that really alarmed me. So I started creating what I knew, POC-owned businesses, Black-owned, Asian-owned, Latinx-owned, Native-owned. And then from there, I really was depending on the community to help spread the word, to help build the directory, to help, more people get represented. It was a lot of, I was way more difficult than it needed to be because I like manually was inputting the information from
Wow.
Google Forms and all that stuff. And then Mary Pryor of Can Inclusive reached out to me. I think it was end of summer. And she said, hey, I've been working on this internally for about a year and a half now. I had only been, that it had only been released for a few months. So obviously she had been working on it internally for a lot longer than I had. I just kind of beat them to the punch in terms of releasing it.
Yeah.
And then she was like, look, I don't want us to have like 2 competing lists trying to like, one trying to build it while the other, like, let's just work together.
Crazy.
And let's just, join forces and put our efforts into one space, so that we like it's erasure of each other's work even.
Right.
And with that, we started just working together on managing this, the directory, vetting all of the businesses that get on there. And then thinking about, a lot of the initiatives. So we had plans for 2020, and obviously as everyone's big plans for 2020 had to change.
Yes.
And so, we did take obviously a little hiatus around like February, March, April to collect our bearings. And then we really just wanted to continue to build the list. And then obviously, in this week that we're recording this and the week before, a lot of stuff happened in terms of the state of our society, and a lot of businesses recognizing that they needed to be aware of and be supporting more Black-owned businesses. And so with that, we've gotten a lot more activity
I love
as
that.
of late.
Activity in adding people and activity in searches.
And activity and people reaching out being like, hey, we see that you've been doing this and we want to know, what we can do, how we can work together, either how we can partner or how we can amplify your work. Yeah, it's been really, really interesting, the conversations we've Can Inclusive, the team there and I have been having with some of those bigger cannabis companies who are really coming around and saying like, hey, how do we pay attention more and support what you are actually doing and what you've been doing. There also have been companies that have been trying to create their own lists and directories, and we're like, look, why don't you just add to ours and let's work together rather than you trying to cannibalize our list. So it has been very interesting to navigate, but I just really want this to be an accessible resource for everyone, and I know that the Can Inclusive team feels the same way. I mean, the women on that team, from Mary to Cassia to Arlene to Kendra, they all, have been working for years longer than I have, to be frank, in terms of cannabis legalization, cannabis social equity, all of this work that has been and needs to continue to happen when it comes to proper representation in the industry. It's really it's fascinating to see like who's gonna be here after all this noise dies down.
Yeah, 2020 has been cutthroat in the best way. Like, who will be the last people standing through, like, who has their finances right with Corona, like business wise, or, who's been walking the talk and being sustainable not only in like finances and in relation to the earth, but in relation to community building and reforming social equity.
Yeah, I feel like 2020 is the year of true colors. Like
Yeah.
everyone's selves, their inner selves, the people that they've been trying to hide, like it's all getting
Cheer
exposed.
it up. So let's close out with your personal experience being Asian and how that's influenced your cannabis experience as a consumer and within the industry.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I've been grappling with a lot lately. I want to really acknowledge always my extreme privilege in my existence in this industry and out of this industry as an Asian woman. Um, and also the fact that there are so many people who have done the work to make medical, even possible. And then from there, making recreational even possible. So I definitely have a lot of different facets in terms of intersectionality that I need to recognize when it comes to my privilege in the cannabis industry as an Asian woman and as a, light-skinned Asian woman at that. And I definitely need to pay homage to my history as well. I mean, I'm learning so much about ancient Chinese medicine and what cannabis's contribution was to that, right? I think a lot of the stigma and propaganda, especially from China's filled with propaganda, as well as, with the anti-cannabis and war on drugs stigma here in the States. A lot of that, really contributes to our modern understanding, even though historically and with ancient, history in mind particularly, there was such a different understanding of the cannabis plant, right? And I'm really trying to get more in touch with that. And Monica Lowe of Sue Weed, as well as Courtney Wu of Amnesia Media, they did a really fantastic job last year of putting together this Asian history and cannabis sort of piece, and with a specific focus on traditional Chinese medicine, because that is more so connected to our heritage.
Wow.
It was fascinating, honestly, reading through all the things that they researched, because it's stuff that I think my family, even who lives in China right now, is in denial of because of all the propaganda, because of all the misinformation. And I really, really hope that we get back to our roots, quite literally.
Yes.
Because it's all that powerful ancestral knowledge is there, and I think we need to tap into it more.
Completely. And that's what the cannabis plant helps us to do, is to really remember. We have just gotten so far from our roots, as you're mentioning. And so she'll lead the way. I have full confidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, has cannabis, like, ritual and relationship with her helped you with tapping into that? Is that something you enjoyed when you're exploring your history?
Absolutely. And like I mentioned before, really tapping into the spirituality of, what is it that lights me up, right? What is it that drives me? What is it that I look to for guidance in times of trauma or stress? And it really, this plant has given me that beacon, right? And helped give me direction in terms of what to explore, and even understanding like other plants to explore. I think we could do a whole episode on psychedelics if we wanted to, and then get into that journey as well. But yeah, this plant is just, I don't want everyone to think that cannabis consumers are like, oh my gosh, this is the hero plant, like everyone needs to be, but like I kind of do feel that way.
Yeah,
Like,
at the same time, like, it's
beautiful.
so much gratitude because it's amazing. Like, it's awesome in the literal sense.
Yeah, and the life-changing nature of it, right? Helping open up the mind, open up the understanding and the acceptance. That's been a big one for sure. I mean, I'm I'm still an angry person. I used to be a lot angrier. If you can imagine.
Yeah, really beautiful. Okay, I have one more question related to your business. Part of your mission is breaking the stigma, and how do you do that? What's your strategy?
Yeah, I think it really is just showing more people the different kinds of individuals that do consume cannabis, right? Like, I know a lot of people are nervous about sharing their story and their relationship when it comes to cannabis. And for me personally, I am guilty of that. I am nervous to share with my own family. I'm very open with the rest of the world, but my family definitely has a different um, I have a different relationship, of course.
Yeah.
But with this plant, like I really do think we need to be more open, and this is something that I'm working on, is just being more open with sharing with, people in our daily lives, people that ask us about, our relationship with the plant. This is how I incorporate it. It's a part of my life. It's not something that like, oh, I'm going to go on a Saturday night to this one place and like consume it. It's like, no, I wake up in the morning, for my digestion. I smoke a little bit to help, calm my gut. And, I also use it to help stimulate my appetite, to help me get to sleep, all sorts of different
Right.
things.
You live with
Talking
it.
about exactly, like, how do you incorporate this plant into your life just the way you would incorporate a glass of water, right? Or, a bar of chocolate, of very high quality dark cacao chocolate, right? Or, whatever it is. So, I think moms, obviously that whole relationship with being protective of who knows, you as a mom
Right.
consumes, like, I totally understand that. But I think, more moms, more teachers, more doctors, more, different representations of the variety, because there's so many different types of cannabis consumers, and I think a
Totally.
lot of people just think there's only a few.
A stoner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so difficult to break into that because like as a pharmacy student, no way was I going to tarnish my reputation because the automatic assumption is you're lazy or
Hmm.
just like strung out or something. But you can be both. You can do both.
Yeah,
You're a girl that can
I
do
mean,
both.
I am lazy sometimes, but
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with cannabis.
And we need to relax, and like that the lifestyle I was living before was complete anxiety, right? And
Mhm,
now this
mhm.
is helping me with that. So exactly, just the different stories and the different way it can look, and even within an individual, there's so many routes we could go with that, like just different cultivars and different ways of consumption and how you relate. So yeah, there's so much more to it.
Absolutely. Like, and we did, I think we talked a lot about like consumption through smoking or through edibles, but like topicals, right? Like there's
Mhm.
just so many different ways that this plant can help in your life that I think it would be a disservice not to consider them.
Totally. Even my skincare, right? It's that extra level of luxury and care for myself. I love it.
Yeah, and we need more research, right? Just
Yeah.
across the board. More research means more confidence, means, more data, means more that we can do to understand, because I think we've just scratched the surface with understanding this plant.
Totally. Yes. So, what are your favorite resources that you would point someone to if they want to learn about cannabis or, diversify their feeds? Um, who would you point them to?
I definitely, first things first is, like I mentioned before, Can-Occlusive. They do a really great job in terms of educating, and even if they're not the ones providing the education, they're pointing people in the right direction. They're
Mhm.
bringing in collaborators. I just really love, especially recently, but just all of the time, love what they've been doing in terms of giving creators a platform to amplify themselves, right? As well as a connective space for people to come together and really not only learn about the plant, but learn about themselves. And I really love what they're doing. I am a huge fan of, there's just so many businesses that are doing fantastic things that aren't getting, the due credit or recognition that they deserve. I really love what the Hollingsworth company is doing. They are, I think, one of the few Black-owned cannabis companies in Washington State in particular. The Mary Mag is also a really fantastic resource. They are a Black-owned, I think the only Black-owned cannabis publication out there. And they have like a marketplace where you can shop products. They have a newsletter that's really informative. And obviously they're in New York. I wish I could like just fly there and, collaborate. But fingers crossed that will be able to happen soon.
One day.
Yeah, one day soon, fingers crossed. And I also want people to check out the accountability list. It's something that Kasia Can-Inclusive helped really initiate, and there are a lot of collaborators working on it, like Savina. I know a lot of, I'm like blanking on all of the incredible people working on it, like Kalan, and just a couple other folks. I think it's 8 women total that are working on it and really putting a lot of research and time into which cannabis companies are stepping up, which ones are putting their money where their mouths are. That is incredibly important, especially now and especially, moving forward into the future. And, I also want to shout out you.
Oh
I think you're such a, not necessarily like only cannabis focused, but yeah, such a resource for healing and for wellness. And I hope more people look into and recognize, the work that you're doing, because it is not easy. And it is also, the way you facilitate it is really wonderful. And I am hoping to get a little bit more of that energy in my life as well, because you know me, I'm just like rage. That's like my default.
Has its place. Totally. Thank you. Okay, Kieran. So obviously we want people to check out the directory. We want you to go check out InclusiveBase. But what else are you working on? What's new? I attended a webinar recently with you. What's on the horizon?
I am working, oh my goodness, and I'm like, you know how you put things on your calendar and then you like move it to the next day and then you just like keep moving it to the next day? This is like what has definitely been the case for me. I am working on putting together an event that I hope to be able to do more than just this once. But originally I was going to do an in-person event in September where it was going to be wealth and wellness. So in the morning, it's, helping women learn about all the ways, how can I negotiate better? How can I invest better? How can I grow my generational wealth? All of that stuff. And then in the afternoon, it was going to be different stations of, a yoga practice or watercolors, massages, nails, tarot, astrology, aura photography. I wanted like really to be this experience, and fingers crossed 2021 September, the in-person event is going to happen. But obviously this year for 2020 it's going to have to pivot to a more virtual setting. So I'm working on, the logistics of the virtual setting, because it's just, I had set up this whole schedule and to-do list, for a physical sort of event, which virtually it's just going to look a little different. So I'm hoping to do all of that. It's not going to be exactly like, the stations and things like that. It's probably going to be more conference style. But yeah, I'm excited to work on that, get that together, because I really think we need more spaces where women are not only learning skills and tools to grow their wealth and grow their value, just, you know, not only skills wise, but monetarily as well. And then with a little bit of, you know, pampering afterward, you know, like
Yeah.
treat yourself for learning all that stuff.
You got me with the nails. I'm like, I could really use that. And if I were just already in that setting, like, I'm on fire about this. So everyone should follow Kieryn at Almost Consulting on Instagram. You can sign up for her email list and stay in touch, truly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, watch some of my stories before you DM me.
Yes. What are the rules?
Because,
What are the Instagram rules?
well, because people DM me having watched my stories once and not really having context for, like, this is how I am all the time. This isn't just how I am today, you know? And so I think that surprises people. I'm sure you can attest to
Those are some bold people, though. I'm like, I gotta see what's going on here first.
Oh my gosh, the entitlement though, like there's so much of it on social media. So with that, you know, I've had people reach out to me like, hey, like you shouldn't be talking to people like this. I'm like, oh honey, you have no idea
also, this is my
what you have signed up for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, of course, you know me, I want to build community. I want to connect with you, but I also, you know, like, let's have a little respect for each other, especially when we're first interacting with each other.
Completely. Anything else you want to share with the listeners?
I just want everyone to, even if it's just once, like, try the plant. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's fine. But just try it, and you know, just from there, decide and make a decision. But before you try, don't make any decisions about or, you know, assumptions or notions about the plant, because experiencing it for yourself will definitely change. You know, it might not like completely open you up to consumption for life, but it'll help you understand it a little bit better, I think.
For sure. Yeah, I think at least at the store, like so many older people mostly are concerned about feeling high, and it's like you got to know what that is, and there are so many levels of impairment or levity and elevation that you gotta feel it out yourself.
Yeah, like the giggly high. Oh my god, I found this strain the other day that was like so giggly. It makes me so happy, and it really just boosts my mood. It, you know, helps me feel so much better. Like, I love it, you know. I definitely turn to that when I'm trying to relieve some of that, you know, cortisol that's coursing through my system.
Yes, I feel you. Well, thank you for the beautiful conversation, and have a great night.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. You can find more information about holistic healing and what I do by visiting ToriRerick.com. Find me on Instagram at YourGuideTori and connect with me through direct message anytime. Peace out.